We're going to be talking through today's Monday MLB slate. I want to say congratulations to Sheets for another great MMA performance. Sheets, why don't you talk a little bit about your weekend? And I didn't play any DFS this weekend, but talk a little about yours. And
yeah, first of all, sorry again I can't quite figure out how to make this video stream work. So like right now, like the view of myself is okay, but I'm kind of cut off. And when I move the camera back like this, then it gets all dark. So I don't know exactly how to handle this, but we'll just start like this for now. I have to say that I was pretty dead on with the MMA content this week with respect to the DFS piece. I talked about making a really big slate small by just really focusing in on a couple of key spots, and as it turns out, I put almost the identical lineup or the identical at least takes in the 555 and ended up getting second for 20,000. And it all just kind of came together. It was really nice. I ended up, and there was very little chance I could have won. I would have had to have made one for one swap, which I just don't think I ever would have made. So I basically took everything that I could out of that slate. So that was really good. And aside from that, golf was kind of crappy. I cashed in like one of the bigger ones at the 250, but like not enough to make up for everything else. And baseball's always tough. NASCAR was actually kind of interesting for those of you that were following it. The only way anybody would be following it if they bought some of it, and again, I wasn't paying as much attention because I was busy doing other things. But one of my lineups in the lottery was like cashing by itself for 100,000 for, let's just say, a long enough time where it caught my attention. Till it got to about like 12 laps to go. Now the thing about that is, if you're like in first in baseball with 100,000, like you could either cash for 100,000 or maybe 30 or 20 or 10. You know, like NASCAR, that $100,000 lineup ended up cashing for like $102. So that's kind of the way that goes. But aside from that, overall, just good weekend from MMA. Everything else is kind of whatever, and we're going to get right back into baseball today.
Beautiful, man. That's great. Great run. Obviously, you've had on MMA. Yeah. I'm just happy because I had my first profitable golf week in a little while, which was nice.
Oh, let's go! Good for you.
We had, and I just missed on the 6 of 6, but it wouldn't have mattered anyway. I didn't have Harmon in my big 80-88, but I had all the Fleetwood and who barely kept it even together. That guy literally could have shot like 19 under in that tournament. He just could not make a putt to save his life. But Fleetwood, Cam Young ended up being a really good play. So that's Henrik Stenson, who we talked about, ended up in the top 15 at like no cost and no ownership. So there were some good runs, but didn't quite get there for anything crazy. And I also had a good baseball slate on Friday.
And Tony Rocky Horror was doing well for a while. Did he end up in top 10?
I don't know.
The Rosner? I don't remember.
Who was that?
The Tony Rosner? Antoine Rosner?
Oh, yeah. He ended up. He didn't end up in the top 10, I don't think. But the other guy did. The Kenny's guy. He birdied 18 to get in the top 10. The kid who's from the place, Jordan.
Oh, Jordan, nice.
Well, that was pretty wild. Yeah, it was a weird tournament. Brian Harmon just completely dominating a tournament. I've never seen it. I didn't expect to see it, and at the British Open. But that was it was a little bit nuts. Anyway, we're back to baseball. Sheets, can we pull up your screen and go game by game?
Not really. I mean, not really.
Okay, I'll pull up my screen then. Okay, give me a second here. I actually went through this already, so I kind of know roughly. Well, I know roughly what's available. I don't know really what I want to do yet. I'm kind of having trouble with this slate. And there's usually something that stands out, and I go, okay, well that's the move I'm going to make. And with pitching, I'm having a very big trouble with that, and with hitting, I've got like 9 stacks, so I've got to will some things down here.
Yeah, I'm kind of cool with my pitching. And there's a couple of key games that we're gonna talk about. Well, we'll go in your order, but then again, actually, there's very little issues with the orders. It looks like, at least for the first couple. So
yeah, I think we got the little staggers in there. All right, well, we'll talk about I'll start real quickly with the Washington-Colorado game. I think both of these stacks are extremely playable, and it's really hard for me with the limited pitching options and not great spots to not have Corbin on my list. I know this feels weird, and it's not like he's crazy cheap either, but we've seen him pitch much, much, much better. And in tougher matchups than this one, you have the team that strikes out the second most against lefties in Colorado. I believe that's correct. Yeah, they strike out the second most against lefties. 234 average. They have the low slugging and pretty much everything that would be good for a lefty. The problem is it's Corbin, and I also kind of want to stack the Rockies. I also think on the other side that it's very viable to stack the Nats. I just think that you're going to be dealing with a bullpen game, but it's a really bad bullpen. So it's just a matter of how you want to weigh that out. I don't generally love to stack the bullpen games, but everything in this game, Corbin and both offenses feel in play to me, and nothing that seems like it's going to be my main priority unless the ownership gets low enough on Colorado. I could see myself making a stand. I think it might be at no ownership. I might just have to take a chance and just, if we get the bad Corbin, you're printing money because they could score 10 runs here. But both these offenses should be low owned, and I think they're both extremely viable. That's where I'm at.
So we started to talk about this a little bit in the Discord, but not really. And I figured I would just leave it till we recorded to talk about this. There are people that are going to play Corbin for all the reasons that you mentioned, and I'm just going to end up rooting for them. I'm just not going to do it. I get it, I feel it, but I just have other pitchers I'd rather play. And like you said, if Corbin's recent resurgence, whatever you want to call it, or success is going to somehow make Colorado low owned, I'm all in. I'm all in for that. I would much rather play Colorado here than play Corbin, if you want to know the truth. The Washington side of it, I kind of like that. I was waiting to see your take on the Colorado bullpen game thing, and if you're not afraid of it, then I'm not afraid of it. And I kind of like that. I kind of like playing some of these Washington guys. They seem to put up runs. I don't know if they put them up in exactly the way that I want them sometimes, but they're usually pretty cheap. And it's funny. I played a FanDuel. I was building my FanDuel lineups, and I was pretty set on who I was going to do pitching wise and my first stack, but I couldn't quite figure out who my secondary stack was going to be. So I was fiddling around with different Washington builds. So I do like Washington though on both DraftKings and FanDuel. I'm not going to do Corbin. If anything, I will do Colorado.
Yeah, my only issue with every other player that you want to take, over Corbin, who's more expensive and everything, not one of them has his leash, not even close. And that's sort of what's driving me towards maybe playing him. But we'll see. I mean, again, it feels wrong, so I'm happy to be talked out of it. All right, Cleveland and KC. Logan Allen is going to be really popular today. 87 is a pretty high price for him, but I think that the matchup, makes him a strong play here. He is one of the guys who you would put in that category of, I have no idea how many pitches they're going to let him throw. And it's very strange because he's coming back. He had the 2 weeks off, the 15-day DL. And then he came back and they only let him throw. He was pitching perfect. He had a one hitter going and threw 5, and they pulled him. That's really concerning to me because that means you basically have to be perfect just to get your through 5. Now, if he scores 30 fantasy points, you're going to be happy about it, obviously. I don't see that as being a realistic median. I think it's more likely you see him in that, 10 to 15 range a lot of the time here. So I think at high ownership, my initial thought was to try to fade, but he also at the same time, you got to love the matchup. And, he if they let him throw 85 pitches or 90 pitches, he definitely can get there. Just doesn't have anywhere near the leash of some of the guys who are cheaper than him. So that's my argument against him. I do think that Cleveland is in play. I don't absolutely love it. As you know, I don't tend to. I like them a little better against lefties. At least historically I have. I don't like, you're going to get the cheap David Fry in there, which makes the lineup real cheap. Arias should be in there at 2.1 if you want to make a 5-man stack. So I have Cleveland as one of the other stacks, but not standing out to me as being above or behind Colorado or Washington.
Yeah, I'm not getting to either of the hitting in this game. My thoughts on Logan Allen as a play is very similar to yours. He projects pretty well, and I have him rated like maybe 4th or something like that today. But like you said, you don't know exactly what kind of leash he has. Yet on the other hand, Kansas City does give up a decent amount of fantasy points to opposing pitchers in general.
Yeah, they do.
So I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna leave him in my mix, but
Mhm.
uh, it and he's gonna show up. I don't know if I'm gonna play him in my big buy, and I probably won't. I have other plans for my big lineup today, I think. But
Mhm.
and I was waiting to see if you were gonna suggest maybe Ryan Yarbrough again, but I guess I don't have him as a play at all. But I remember we talked about him last time.
Yeah,
Um,
not so much in this matchup, and not when I don't need the pricing as much. I don't think today. No Atlanta on the slate makes it a little bit easier not to try to desperately spend down a pitcher
yeah.
because it feels like you got to play Atlanta every day, some at least.
Yep.
All right, let's yeah. So all right, why don't you start off the Twins and Mariners here?
Yeah, so these are the two. I mean, these are two of the three pitchers, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Maeda and Castillo. Uh, I don't know if I'll play them both together, but maybe. And then on the other hand, I'm getting to some Seattle as kind of not like my top stack, but certainly in the conversation. Really close actually. So Maeda and Castillo and Seattle, but I think that you could if you play Castillo and Maeda, we'll get some other options later. Then I don't really think you even need to play Logan Allen if you want to know the truth. I think those are two of the three best options. I think, and we'll get to the other one later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the best strikeout matchups on the slate are for these two guys, but the things I don't like. One, obviously, the Castillo's price is significantly higher. They just played this game. I've never been a big fan of taking the side that prevailed in the first side. I always feel like it goes the other way back. I don't have any data to back that up right now, but that's the way it always seems to go. And Castillo, and facing them back to back in 90. Well, the difference between this and the other one is this is going to be like 90-degree weather, and potentially some wind blowing out. So it does feel like a much worse pitcher spot. You also have the issue with Maeda where they just don't let him throw pitches. He hasn't thrown more than 87 pitches in a game. He threw 80 in the last game when he was pitching really well, 80 the game before that, and he got roughed up. He's streaky in general as well. So whenever he's chalky, it's a little bit concerning, but that's how everybody is on this slate. Castillo, it's really more of a price thing than anything else with the lineup that they're throwing out there for Minnesota. I agree. I don't think it's a bad idea. The slate is small enough to where if you're not playing these guys, to maybe play some cheap Seattle bats. You're going to get really low ownership on both sides of this game. And taking a shot or two against Maeda I have no problem with, whether it's Crawford, Suarez, Teoscar, all super cheap. Mike Ford is super cheap. I don't mind taking a chance on some of those guys if you want to try and take the other side against Maeda. All right. Moving on to Texas and Houston. And this one feels, for me, like it's going to be a cross-off type of game. I think you can make an argument for both pitchers, and I think you can make an argument for both stacks. I don't feel like either of any of its priorities for me.
I agree. I don't have either of the pitchers as being in my top mix, and I don't have either of the stacks being in my top mix. It's one of those middling situations where both pitchers are reasonable enough to keep us off the hitting, and the hitting is reasonable enough to keep us off the pitching. So I'm perfectly willing to move on as well.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move it right past it. And by the way, later in the day doesn't mean I'm not going to have show up with a Texas stack. This is just a first look. I want to remind people of that. All right, Colin Ray and Graham Ashcraft. This is a game that if it was in Cincinnati, I feel like the run total would be at least one higher and be the obvious stacking spot for everybody. I don't think that's going to be the case today. And because of it, I actually think that I'm probably going to end up with some stacks on both sides of this. This feels like a day where I might do a little more 4-4 stuff and maybe not go for the full 5-3 unless it builds itself naturally. But I like taking a shot. I like the idea of taking a shot against Ray with the Reds. For what it's worth, Ray has been decent, but he does give up some home runs. Decent enough, not like amazing or anything. And I still think Ashcraft is probably a little better of a pitcher than maybe most people think he is. But it's still a good matchup for a cheap Milwaukee. Well, Milwaukee with a lot of cheap options. So I'm more interested in the bats in this game than I am the pitching, and that's pretty much where I'm at.
feels like the Reds play the Brewers like 37 times a month.
Doesn't it feel that way? It does.
It's like the Pacers in Charlotte in the NBA.
Yeah, right.
Except this game usually scores more. I don't know. Actually, that's not too Charlotte scored quite a bit. Yeah, I like Cincinnati here, and certainly don't like either of the pitching. Cincinnati both on DraftKings and on FanDuel are showing up, and while I'm not seeing Milwaukee show up right now on my stacks sheet, I think I don't know. Maybe I should think more about that. Like you said, Ashcraft is he's can be hit or miss, I guess. But definitely Cincinnati is clearly in play. They're one of my top 5 stacks on both sides, and I'll think about Milwaukee, but right now it's just Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think I'm a little higher on Cincinnati as well. Interesting that the run total it's a little low. I think this is. I'll tell you guys. I'll throw my bets up later today, but this is probably going to be one I just take the over on and live with the consequences. All right, moving over to the Rangers and Astros.
We just did that.
I'm sorry, moving over to St. Louis and Arizona. Is that what you have, or is it San Diego?
It doesn't matter. We'll
okay.
go with
St. Louis, Arizona. For me, I think that Arizona is probably going to end up being one of my favorite stacks. You're going to have a limited pitch count on Wainwright. I think 65 pitches is what we're expecting. I actually think you can make a decent argument for Arizona. Sorry, for St. Louis as well. The roof, obviously, I'm not even going to check to see if it's open because my friends in Arizona are telling me it's 120 degrees right now. So. I don't think that they're going to put the roof open. I don't know if it really is 120, but that's what they told me on Saturday. So I think both of these stacks are extremely viable, and I think if we had to just pick to narrow down some things, I'll take shots, and especially the Arizona side. I like. That's probably where I end up. I don't know which bats exactly I'm going to want for sure, but I do think that Arizona is I slightly prefer over the Cardinals. Just keep an eye out. We don't have a run line for this game, and I think it's because we don't officially have the starting pitchers set yet with pitch counts and all that.
Yeah, I have Ryan Nelson as starting for Arizona. And Wainwright for St. Louis. I'm getting to some Arizona on DraftKings and FanDuel, but they're actually not. I don't have them as high as you. I have them as kind of secondary. And then on FanDuel, I'm getting to St. Louis. I'm not getting to St. Louis on DraftKings for some reason, but I'm getting the Arizona on both sites and a little bit of St. Louis on FanDuel. So pretty much in agreement with you, except I'm just not as much on Arizona maybe as you are.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that I do have Nelson as one of my options if he does, assuming that he does in fact pitch tonight. Even though I'm going to have some interest in the bats on St. Louis, he's been really, really good, Nelson. And I'm not going to just overlook it and treat it as if like it didn't happen. So I'm definitely interested in playing a little bit of him on a slate where I don't like the pitching that much, and you're going to get super low ownership.
I guess I'll start with so you can finish with the whatever.
There's 2 more.
Yeah, so I have Toronto as clearly the best stack on both sites, DraftKings and FanDuel. I'll let you talk about what the weather's like, whatever it is after I finish. But I have both sides, Toronto, like clear number 1 for me. On the other hand, I'm not getting to Berrios. I'm getting to like sneaky asterisk low owned-ish Dodgers. On DraftKings. I just figured I would mention that and get your take on that because I know you know Berrios pretty well, and obviously you know the Dodgers pretty well.
We never talked about the San Diego game.
Oh, okay. We'll get back to it then.
Yeah.
We'll get back to it. But I actually do like. I have Toronto as my best stack, and I actually do like the Dodgers a little bit.
I'm not all that interested in Toronto. I think it's fine. Big stadium downgrade, nice hitting weather for what it's worth. So it's better than LA usually plays. I don't know. I think that, Grove is going to be streaky. Yeah, I think Toronto's totally fine. I like that you're taking a stand with them. They didn't show up for me really. And I do think the Dodgers are an interesting low owned stack as always. Like sometimes, you can just close your eyes and play the best lineup on the slate and, you're going to have good results often enough. Barrios can certainly be tricky, teams who don't face him all that often. But at the same time, this Dodgers team, like you just put a righty out there, and it's just hard not actually put anybody out there. It's just hard not to have some interest in them on these smaller slates. The one thing that they have, though, is I just keep telling everybody that makes them a little harder to stack is you've got guys, Jason Hayward hits a home run, and then in the first inning, second inning, the third inning, he comes up for a second at bat, and they pinch hit for him. It's starting to happen more and more as they're playing games to win, and you're going to see more platooning with guys like Hayward, Peralta, and potentially even in certain spots Outman. So just something to keep in mind with the Dodgers that makes it a little bit tougher to stack them, which they're already tough to stack anyway. I think you're going to see Chris Taylor playing more and more, and yeah.
So I guess I'll start with the Pittsburgh San Diego. It's an easy game. I mean, Yu Darvish is the best pitcher overall on the slate, with Price and everything else, and then I also have San Diego as playable on both sites as well. So that's why again you could when you do your summary you could do that, and because you have like Castillo and Darvish and Maeda, for example, I don't think I need to, and even if you don't want to play Logan Allen, I don't think I need to worry about playing guys like Corbin today. I don't know. What do you think of this game? What do you think of Darvish? Good chalk, bad chalk? What do you think about this?
I just think there's something like every pitcher that's going to be owned tonight. I feel like I could make a really good case against, and Darvish is extremely streaky to be probably 50% owned plus in the big buy-ins, at least later today. He's so talented. Of course, I would have him at the top of the list as well. I think that he does make the most sense, along with Castillo, but Castillo's just really expensive. So I do have Darvish as my number one right now, but I also think that it feels weird when you factor in that he's probably going to be, I think it's probably going to be more like 60 or 70% owned in the big buy-ins, which is why. So to sum up my thing, I have Darvish number one. Everybody else I have as a very, very questionable situation. I'm just looking at Goldie's ownership here, and Darvish, I'd want to be below the field on basically every name, which feels really weird, except for these cheap guys. And I think it is a day where you can get different at pitcher, because I just don't think any of these options. I mean, here's the most owned pitchers in order: Darvish, Logan Allen, Castillo, Maeda. I don't think any of those guys are sure things to even have decent games. Castillo would be the one that I would put as the most likely not to get blown up or anything, but he's been bad outside of his last two outings. He was struggling. Then you get Corbin, Colin Ray, John Gray. I just don't feel great about any of it. So I'm really struggling right now. I have Darvish number one. That's the only thing I know. Even whether I play him or not is still up in the air because of the ownership. My favorite stacks are Cincinnati, San Diego, and Arizona. Those are my three favorites, and the Dodgers are my favorite get weird one. I will probably get some other exposure to other spots, but those are the favorites for me. And then I just was looking through the value plays. Because you've got Jankowski batting second for Texas, I think that makes Texas a stack a little more viable because you could sort of afford them.
See that.
Assuming that he does in fact bat there. And then Brennan and Bell are going to make Cleveland look a little bit better too. So because they're so cheap, just a few cheap bats to throw out there. Just wanted to mention them. Anyway, that's a little run. That's a little rundown of what I'm doing. Darvish, Cincinnati, San Diego, Arizona, but I'm definitely willing to look different places and get some Colorado exposure, get some Washington exposure. And possibly even play the guy who I probably stacked against more than anybody, or we've all stacked against more than anybody else, and that's Corbin.
Yeah, I'm gonna root for you and Rich for your Corbin lineups. For me, I'm gonna be chalky and go somewhere of those top four, like Darvish, Allen, Maeda, and Castillo. Mm-hmm. I will try to get different with stuff like Colorado, and Toronto's not going to be. I think Toronto's going to be popular. I don't know, but
they might be.
The thing about Toronto is that you know what they're going to be, because you can play Brandon Belt at 3,100.
Yeah, but people they don't want to stack Toronto and not play Vlad a lot of the time.
Varsho 3,200.
Especially while Vlad's cheap.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see. But I'm gonna plan on being there with you at 6.
Okay.
And,
great.
That's it.
Sounds good. Well, we got a nice light little day, guys. So we'll see you guys at 6, and let's make some money tonight. Let's pull a Sheets MMA style.
That's it.
Here we go.